Hi, welcome to Box on the Box Rock and Celluloid. I'm over Box, Bot back for short. So a bit of celluloid today. I've just got back from watching Dune Part Two. So no spoilers in this. I'll try and keep it pretty clean. I thoroughly enjoyed Dune Part One. I watched it again recently. I did find it a little slow the back half when the character Paul Atreides and his mother, played by Rebecca Ferguson, kind of ended up in the desert for a long period and met the Fremen. But those who know the David Lynch Dune know how kind of complex and cosmic the Dune story is. I've never read the books, but you needed more time and more scope to bring this together. So there was always that hope, well, hopefully Dune 1 will be big enough to hit that we'll have Dune Part 2, and that's happened. I think they've been very savvy, the Dune filmmakers. They've cast... in this one, obviously from the previous one, we've got Timothée Chalamet and Zendaya, two of the hottest young actors in the world. And then in this one, they've added Austin Butler, he of Elvis fame. So these are the kind of young actors who will hopefully attract teenagers to this. Because it's very complicated. There's a lot of mystical mumbo-jumbo in this. But when you get into it, you can kind of penetrate it and work out what I guess Frank Herbert was getting at. I think... watching this film, it kind of makes sort of clearer the Dune world, and you say how influential it is. Really, the Atreides, Arrakis, it's kind of like the Christians, I suppose, and then they're getting spice from what you'd see as like the Middle East or the Islamic world in a way, if you're kind of putting it in our terms. And that's how I kind of see it. It's got elements. You can see where Star Wars has been greatly influenced by this. The character Baron Harkonnen, Jabba the Hutt, the worms, when the worms open up their mouths in the sand, well, that's the Sarlacc pit, and Paul Atreides is the kind of chosen one, the Messiah. Read that Luke Skywalker. He's also referred to as the One, and then look at the Matrix. So it's weird that kind of there's been this kind of failed version of Dune that people has a following and people do love, but it doesn't really make any sense because it tries to cram too much in. Effectively, Dune Part 1 is 2/3 of kind of the Lynch Dune but spread out. This one takes the story further. Tech credits are superb with this. The cinematography by Greg Fraser's amazing. I was just watching Mark Kermode's review actually. Apparently they've used a technique where digital was looking too crisp and analog was looking too nostalgic. So somehow the shot, I think, on digital or the shot on film, I think probably digital, and then spat it out into an analog kind of format and then spat it back, as it were. Just to get the right look. I mean, it looks incredible. The effects, there's not one wasted effect shot. There's not one bit of CGI that feels fake. I think that's interesting as well. I think back in the days of Star Wars, they developed the technology with the motion control cameras and model work. Building on the work of 2001, to arrive at a brilliant look and a look that still looks really good. And that continued using that technique across all films like Raiders of the Lost Ark and so on. Old school practical effects. Then when computers came along, they didn't use too much. They only used CGI that they could do was believable. So you look at The Abyss, Terminator 2, they're still really good. Jurassic Park. But then George Lucas, I think he kind of dropped the ball with The Phantom Menace and only thought he could do the whole thing with CG. And then bits just look too CGI. And what's happened since then is people have realised they need to do a holistic process where some things need to be set, some things need to be green screen, some things need to be CGI, some things need to be model, and so on. Denis Villeneuve did that on Blade Runner 2049, and Dune's no exception. It mixes all the available things you've got available to create the look he requires. His universe building's amazing. I suppose you'd have to compare him to George Lucas and Ridley Scott with this, but he has an artistic sort of intellectual approach. He's comes from a kind of more art house background. Denis Villeneuve, I must confess I've not seen his film Indices. I think that's in French language Canadian. But the guy's right up there. I think for many people, along with Christopher Nolan, he is the modern filmmaker we look to give us visual spectacle, to give us ambition. I think he achieves that as this film. It's not perfect. I think I'd give it an 8 out of 10, 9 out of 10. I'd probably want to watch it again. The acting's good. The casting's spot on with this. And it kind of fleshes out characters more like Zendaya's character. We've had a bit of her in the first one. She's very good. Florence Pugh's good. You got Christopher Walken coming into it. Austin Butler's great fun as the Sting character. Timothy Chalamet is really good. He's kind of toughened up on this. There's some interesting themes with this. It's exploring fundamentalism. It's exploring, there's bits of reference to the modern world, I think, quite effectively. The idea of following, a messianic figure. Do you need a kind of belief system to follow people above and beyond? I think it sort of has that. And the sort of questions for characters within that. Hans Zimmer's score's immense. It has those big themes kicking in. And I really like the way Villeneuve's kind of evolved the look. This has got, there's a bit using a whole different colour palette in this, that's all I'll say. The opening, it's in the desert, but it feels more burned, more of an orange type glow. The ships are different in this. It's still got the ships of the old one, but it's got some cool battles, but they're different. So he's extending things and developing things. So this is a very good sequel, and I think it will shape up to be. I think they will do a third film. I've looked at them on Friday. It made $32 million at the US box office. By the time this drops, it'll probably its opening weekend, which I think is predicted to be $75 million. So I think it's opening bigger than the original Dune. You remember the first Dune kind of came out on the tail end of when we're still a bit COVID-y. So, and Chalamet's had a big hit with Willy Wonka as well. And I think, that's going to draw like in the younger audience, because it's a hard sell, Dune. The books were written early 60s, I think it's 1965, so it's got that kind of slight flower power element, I'd imagine, references to spice, it's hallucinogenic. I imagine there's some books are kind of its time, but the same things people have taken, elements, and it's a hugely influential work. One thing I realised actually watching this, obviously I'm a big Doctor Who fan, there's a great story of Doctor Who, The Robots of Death, and you can see how that's taken one part Frank Herbert because they're mining in a sand, they've got sand mining machines, and you've also got robots on the ships, which is obviously Isaac Asimov, his robotic free laws and so on. So I never really picked up on that before. So again, that's another, obviously British hokey TV show, but another influence thing there. So overall, amazing cinematography, first-rate spectacle, first-rate direction, telling a complicated story with some kind of hallucinogenic, trippy visuals, and embracing that tough sell, but does it well. Villeneuve's a very good storyteller. Cast are really good. Casting's excellent. Is it better than the first one? I'm not sure. It might be better, but it's moving the story on, and I think there will be a third part. I'd eat my hand if there wasn't, and I think you're going to end up with an epic trilogy that would sit alongside Lord of the Rings and Star Wars original trilogy and so on, hopefully. And Denis Villeneuve is very much the star of this, really. I think he is becoming that kind of director with the body of work he's built now. He's very much one of those filmmakers that if you're into films, you'll go and see his films because it's him. I think that was already established, but this just cements that. I'll go and see anything the guy does unless something drastic happens. Okay, so that's my sort of take on Dune 2. I don't feel, if you like Dune 1, you won't be disappointed. You might not like it as much, you might like it more. I'm not sure, like I said myself, but this is, I think the summer starts here. My wife was saying when we were at the pictures, we saw the trailer for the Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes film, and that looks amazing as well. The new trailer's fantastic, and that comes up May the 10th. And I said, oh, that's the summer blockbuster. My wife was like, oh, well, it's like May. And I said, well, the summer starts then, And then I was actually thinking, well, actually, the summer started now with this. They get some out in March, and this is it. So this is the first big thing of the year. Let's see how the year progresses. But hopefully we'll get some good films. We had some good films last year, and I think we'll get some good ones this year. And Dune 2 is the first of those, hopefully. Okay, so remember, share and subscribe. I'll see you again soon, and thanks very much.